Hello, welcome back to the Journey Mappers podcast, the official podcast of the OU Pledge, sponsored by Oakland University Credit Union. Hi, my name is Yejie Lee, and I'm a Korean Life Design coach at the Korean Life Design Center. Today, I'm joined by Steve Sparks, owner and behavioral analyst of Sparks Behavioral Services, who shares his journey from struggling early in school to building career and a business grounded in behavioral science. Steve, thank you so much for being here. Can you briefly introduce yourself and what you do now?
Sure. I am Dr. Steven Sparks. I am a behavior analyst, doctorate level. I have a few different companies. One is a consulting company for the most severe behavior in the state of Michigan. One where we're starting to branch off, where we'll be housing people with severe behavioral needs and helping them hopefully in a more intensive type setting so they can be back in a less restrictive environment. I have a new kind of offshoot company where we're designing training materials for behavior analysts and continuing education. And I'm also the host of a podcast called The Doc Analyzes Anything, where people can write in strange societal behavior, funny, weird, scary, whatever it is. And we'll do a scientific analysis, but in a way that hopefully the rest of society can understand and find interesting. Our tagline is, science walks into a bar. So it's kind of a laid back joke around, but also let's talk about this scientific phenomena sort of thing.
Yeah, I saw a couple of episodes of your podcast and it's really funny. But the work that you do itself, that's so meaningful and making so much impact in our community. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it. I always say that the people that work for me are the ones, on the front lines nowadays. I started off doing it all myself. And then as we've grown, I don't know that I can take the credit anymore, but they're all doing great work. And so I appreciate what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's all the work that you put in and now that you're here. And I can't wait to hear more about how you got here, where you are right now. But let's go back to your college years for a minute. What did you study in your undergrad and how did you come to choose that path?
So I think go back a little bit farther to high school. I had a teacher who had gone to the business world, found out he was ill and decided he wanted to go back into teaching. And so best teacher I ever had, Mr. Alice, and he taught a class on psychology. And it was just a little bit piecemealed here and there. And that was one class that I really found interesting about how do people work, why do they do what they do, that sort of thing. So I started going to school to become a firefighter, actually, because I was a horrible student in high school. Got in some trouble in my teenage years, couldn't get a job, and decided just to keep going to school and figure out where it took me. And I started taking mostly psychology classes. So I had to go to community college to get my grades good enough to go to Western Michigan University. Went there because I heard they had a good psychology program and because I enjoyed to go there to have fun with my friends. And went to school to party and figure out what to do with my life and left with a Ph.D. 10 years later.
That's amazing. I mean, talk about all the struggles that you've had so far. I mean, there's the part where you weren't sure if you were even going to make it to college.
Yeah.
And you getting your PhD, how did you make that connection and overcome all the uncertainties and the anxiety that comes with that?
Yeah, the simple answer is I got to Western Michigan University, didn't know what I wanted to do. I took one class with Dr. Richard Malott, and it basically took all the things I had heard from, the introduction psychology where they give you a little piece of everything and then that's kind of all you learn, and made it make way more sense. I could see why my behavior was being shaped by the environment around me. I could see how certain situations may have brought me to the point where I was at. I always talk about, I wanted to be an NFL star. My size, my speed, I was good. I didn't have the knowledge. I never put in the time and effort. But I wouldn't be the person I was today, and I probably wouldn't have succeeded because I was too reckless had I gone that path rather than all of my experiences building up to the point to make me to the person I am today. So I took that class. I got real interested, started taking all the classes I could in the area. I was a history minor just because I found it interesting, but it really was, I'm going to go in and learn all about this I can, get some face time with the professor so they get to know me and see if they let me stick around afterwards. And being able to go to community college and just transferring those credits also allowed me to finish, I think I had a 3.81 or something like that GPA by the time I finished undergrad. And so I was a decent candidate for grad school at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then at that point, I didn't get into grad school. I got denied. I just kept working. I was working at an autism center with that professor. I could have just dropped right then, but I didn't know where else to go. So I kept showing up. And by the end of the semester, he said, you know what? I like the work I'm seeing. I'm going to let you stick around. You have to pay out of pocket, but we're going to sign off on your classes you take for the next year. You can get the practicum experience. And then if things go well, we'll let you in the following year.
Mm-hmm.
And so things went well. But because I had done things ahead of time with this professor, I actually got to get some extra experience going from the autism world into severe behavior.
Yeah.
And at that point, I decided, you know what, this is it for me. I want to do the Ph.D. route. So I applied, interviewed just with 2 professors. One didn't take any students. The other chose 1 student over me. That's kind of how cutthroat it was, is only 1 opportunity. Again, all the eggs in one basket. And I got denied again. My work all started with what I'm doing now, starting this practicum, consulting for the most severe behavior in community over there. And then from there, it grew into its own business. All just because I didn't know what to do with my life, so I just kept showing up.
But I mean, you kept showing up. The amount of grit and persistence that it takes with the amount of rejections that you've experienced, that's amazing.
I think it is, but it's also a bit of fear too. What am I going to do? What else do I have to do? I could just sit around and wallow in it or be upset, but I'm just going to keep doing something, because if I stop, if I stagnate, then I may not keep going or doing what I want to do. And it's kind of one of our areas that we talk about in behavioral science is behavioral momentum. It's much easier to start doing something once you've already been doing it or continue doing it. If you stop going to school and then try to come back, it's always a lot harder than if you just keep going. And so I think that was my way of just not getting lost or falling back on the activities I used to be involved in or that sort of thing, was just keep moving forward and finding things and ways to stay busy until I figured out what to do.
So you used your fear and anxiety to really push you forward and keep you going.
Yeah, we actually, a few episodes ago, did an episode on anxiety and how it's a good thing until it's not.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about 150 years ago, the farmer wasn't anxious about getting the crops planted on time. They may have just starved. It has become a debilitating thing in our society because, first of all, it can be generalized to so many different stimuli that you don't know why you're feeling anxious in that moment. But it's also because as a society, we see someone that's anxious and we try to help them, which is a good thing, but maybe they're not to the point of needing help yet. And now could be potentially making it so they don't have the motivation to take that next step that they were afraid to take. Anxiety should be a message to us to say, hey, I need to do something different, not necessarily, hey, there's something wrong with me and I need to get help.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, did you feel like something was wrong with you, or did you just feel like I just fear the unknown future?
I'm sure most of the time throughout most of my life, up until the point where I felt like, okay, I finally had some level of success, I think it's always that thought of what if there's just something wrong with me? You know what I mean? I think that's probably normal for most people in society nowadays. We're like, what if it's not the society? What if it's not the system? What if it's me? And so knowing that most of the time, people are all right. If you're trying to raise children, most of the time, if you don't do things perfectly, they're going to end up okay. Most of the time, you don't have some severe disability or diagnosis that's preventing you from being successful. Finding a way to power through is the best way to go through it, but not everybody can do it. Not every situation calls for it. And it's when you find that you can't power through and then find success on the other side that we say, okay, let's talk to somebody and try to get some help. It very much is true. You fake it till you make it, and then once you've made it, you hopefully you're clear sailing at least for a while until the next thing comes up. But the imposter syndrome is real. Everybody goes through it. You're always going to think, oh, I know this real well, and then all of a sudden something's going to come up like, oh, I don't know what I'm talking about at all anymore. And not shutting down, but just figuring it out is kind of what I learned to do. And when I was younger, I didn't. When I was younger, I said, nope, there's something wrong with me. I need to get help. And I learned at one point, I'm like, none of this is helping. I just have to power through. And so I think it's much easier said than done. I don't ever want anybody to think, nope, just power through, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, because it's not that easy. But it will often fix things as long as you find the right way to do it.
Yeah. Well, what about for students who are maybe unsure about whether they want to go to grad school or, get to a PhD level? How did you know, like, you wanted to get to that level?
It wasn't hard for the master's, mostly because I chose an area of study that doesn't make much money without a master's degree. So it depends on what you're studying and where you want to be. I had significant fear in life of just struggling through everything. I saw friends and family members who were barely making ends meet perpetually throughout all of life. And that scared me enough to not want to have to be in that situation, that I had the motivation to find a way to be successful one way or the other. Didn't know what that was going to look like or how that would be. Psychology was interested in me, so I went that direction. And then you find out, well, yeah, but you can get a job with a bachelor's in psychology, but it's not going to be a career most of the time. You're looking at maybe $20 an hour nowadays, which, it's not bad for a person younger in their lives trying to figure it out, but it's often not enough money to, raise a family solo on, that sort of thing. And so I had that kind of anxiety and fear, which really did drive a lot of what I was doing and why I kept going. After the master's, you will get paid a little bit better with a PhD, but it's really more about the knowledge base. I wanted to know the theory of behavioral science. I didn't want to just know how to go work with a person who has autism diagnosis or schizophrenia diagnosis. I wanted to understand the scientific underpinnings and the most theoretical ways of how these things are going and what's causing them to occur. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the PhD was more about the knowledge drive and wanting to understand things at a theoretical level. But the master's was more like, every step of the way, at least I've done this and gone this far, so I always have this to fall back on. At least I got the bachelor's. Maybe I won't work in this field, but I'll have a knowledge base that someone might be interested in hiring me for a different position. Master's, at least I can always go back to just being a BCBA in an autism center if all else fails. Mm-hmm. PhD, okay, if my businesses all fail, at least I'll be able to find a job somewhere because of the specialty that I'm in. And it's that feeling that at least there's always something there if what you're trying to strive for doesn't work out.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing that you've been able to succeed like this much and, coming from like a 2.1 GPA to a 3.8 student and to a PhD level, and now you're running your own business. Did you always know that you wanted to start your own business?
So, it was nice the fact that I had a specialty and that there was interest in me, kind of going freelance for a while and then building up to hiring people because I had too much work to do myself. It made it much easier. But I also always knew that I didn't take direction well. I've never been the type to I don't like feedback in general. And so I think I always knew that I was going to struggle having a direct boss kind of hovering over me, telling me what to do. And so there's always been that idea of it would be nice to own a business, but that was never the goal. I think the goal probably was when I started the PhD program to become a professor somewhere. And then I saw some of the struggles of some of the other advisors that I had and the politics of the university and decided, you know what, I can't handle someone there telling me what to do again. Let's just go the private route. Let's turn this into a company. And then hopefully one day I can have the time and the afford to do the research I want to do on my own, that I'm funding myself rather than having to deal with the politics, that sort of thing. So,
yeah. And by that point, you've already had experience working with working in the autism clinics and having that practicum experience too, right?
And at the end of the master's program, I also had already started working with the severe behavior clients. And so that's always a nice thing to do. I'll tell any students out there that if you can find a niche area, even though to me, the excitement of it was a lot, kind of drew me in compared to autism work is very fulfilling, and seeing the progress the child is making, there's probably not a better feeling. But there's not always a lot of excitement there. Whereas if I go in, I'm like, oh, what did this person do? Oh, it looks like they murdered someone 10 years ago. They're getting out of prison. Now we have to design a behavior plan so they can re-enter society. Mm-hmm. There's a level of excitement there that I find much more reinforcing. Mm. And that's probably because my mom was an ER nurse in Pontiac and my dad was the first responder at the plant he worked at. And it was very much go stories about trauma and all these things and kind of fit in line with me. But Yeah, by that point, I already had a bit of that to fall back on. And by the time I started the Ph.D. program, it was just honing those skills so I could be out there on my own without any oversight.
Golden Grizzlies, earn more and stand out. Whether you're restocking your fridge or fueling up for your next road trip, make your everyday purchases count with OU Credit Union. The Visa Signature Credit Card gives you perks with every swipe. 3% cash back on groceries, 2% on gas, travel, and university purchases, and 1% on everything else. Plus, with its sleek black grizz design, you'll show off your OU pride every time you swipe. Learn more and apply today at oucreditunion.org/visa.
When I think about students who want to apply for jobs as a BCBA or a behavioral analyst, I always really encourage them to, speak to the employers, because you never know what type of company you'll be working for. When you're hiring your employees, like, what do you look for, and what is your kind of philosophy behind management with employees?
I'll go with the second question first. My philosophy is I don't want someone telling me what to do, so we hope to train and have professionals that can kind of do their own thing, and we can trust them to do their own thing, and there's no need to be hovering and telling them what to do. I started the company, and I didn't like the idea of hours. Like, why have set hours? It doesn't make sense. The people in the homes are there 24 hours a day. If someone's in school or has family, things to deal with, they shouldn't need to be there 9 to 5. And so here's the amount of work that makes sense for the company to make money without overworking the person. How about you just go in and do the work when it works for you, and as long as the work's getting done, we're not going to see anything. And then if things are getting done real well, we try to have incentive systems for going above and beyond or doing things extremely well, rather than a punishment system for saying, hey, you're not doing this quite well enough. It's not to say there haven't been a few instances where we had to do our unmet expectations meeting, design. It's kind of like our own behavior plan of like, okay, how can we meet expectations? 2 or 3 of those meetings and it's not going well. Okay, now I think we're going to have to let you go. But it's all reinforcement based. It's all designed as you would hope to see a behavior analyst do it, and what is successful to get people to meet the criteria you need, but not feel like they're being overworked all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think going back to the first question, then what is it that people can kind of expect from these type of companies, and what are we looking for? When you go into a lot of these interviews, there's a lot of companies nowadays that it's so hard to find a BCBA. They're going to throw the world at you. A lot of these companies are owned by private equity firms, are being bought by private equity firms who know that all they need to do is make a profit, and they can grow large, and as long as they're making a profit, it doesn't matter too much. And so they can pay a lot, but then because they're paying a lot, they'll demand much more of the employees as well. And so there is a major issue in our field right now of work-life balance. A lot of people, it's going to draw people in. And I have to say, fresh out of school, it'd be really hard for me not to say, hey, I could go make a ton of money. I don't have a family. I don't need to worry too much about the work-life balance. I can just do this for a few years and then find something that makes a little more sense for me. And I would encourage people to consider doing that, because you can kind of build up a nest egg and then not work that way. But we don't want you to burn yourself out and then no longer want to be part of our science anymore either. So the tendency is to kind of choose between those. You could either go that route or a BCBA-owned smaller clinic, or one that's on the rise, where you're going to start off not making quite as much, but you'll have a lot more mentoring, a lot more knowledge. And then as you grow, you can hopefully take a leadership position and make that money that you would have made early on, or more than you would make early on. But a lot of people are moving up the ladder that they don't have the knowledge or the experience to move up, and then a lot of these systems are crashing down, and we see these companies not doing as well after a few years because it is all about the profit, not all about the level of care. Mm-hmm. When I'm hiring someone, I want to see a strong scientific knowledge base and a willingness to learn. That's all I care about. I don't care if you have any experience in what we're doing specifically at all, because as long as you have that knowledge base, I can teach this to anybody. I need you to speak the same language as me and understand the way I'm talking about things, and so that's why the science is so important. But other than that, all I care about is you want to learn, we can teach you and become the best professional, and then hopefully down the line have you teaching others to do things the same way as we do it. So it's very hard not to just jump and take the money. But we also want to make sure that every day I see 20, 30 posts on Facebook boards in different places of people saying, I'm burnt out. What else is out there? And we're saying, hey, we're here. We're paying what should be competitive rates, but there's the other companies are just paying an arm and a leg to make you work 80 hours a week. So if you're, had enough of that, come see us. And they're like, yeah, but you don't pay enough. And then, there's that kind of washout period. And so we certainly could have grown faster, but I don't think we could have done it without having some quality issues with our services and how well we are helping people. And I don't think we could have done it without overworking people and making them miserable. And so, definitely could have gone faster. There are, other companies that are doing the exact same thing with the housing that we are doing right now. And I've seen them go from 1 to 2 houses to 30 houses in 4 or 5 years. And I also see some of those houses on the news, and it's the sort of thing that we want to avoid. And the money coming in at this point is more about me having a way to do the next project, to help out the next group of people we're not serving right now, how to grow in a sustainable way that's logical, and to keep our science kind of fun and interesting to me, which is why the podcast is out there now too, is how can we keep life exciting, because monotony can get to you sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I'm learning a lot from you too, and I appreciate all the work that you're putting into this field and, really caring for students who really want to learn and grow in this type of work that does require a lot of patience and persistence. All right, so let's talk a little bit about interview strategies, if you can help us out a little bit here. From your perspective as someone who hires, what do candidates often misunderstand about interviews?
I'm sure every situation is different, and we always go in knowing that's a stressful situation. You always see those posts on Facebook, I asked one really hard question. Depending on how they answer that or how they handle that hard question lets me know if I want to hire someone. And I go in it almost like I'm talking to a student that I might be mentoring back when I was at the university, that sort of thing, where I want to know who you really are. I want to try to break down some of those barriers and get to know you personally to see if it's a good fit, because nothing can tear down a company faster than having, personality differences, especially in leadership. I don't subscribe too much to set questions. I do like to ask some scientific questions that I know are going to be probably too advanced, just to see, can you at least start thinking about things in a way that kind of gets you along the right lines? So I know that the knowledge base is there. You just weren't quite expecting to be put on the spot there in that moment, that sort of thing. I like to ask questions about, how would you handle this situation with severe behavior, knowing that the answer is usually going to be, well, I don't know. You'd have to give me more information. I need to do an assessment first. That's the only way I'd really say I ever try to throw anybody off, is to kind of make sure I can see the thought patterns down the lines they're going, rather than them having the correct answer. And then the biggest thing to me is, where do you want to be? Is this a stepping stone, or is this I'm just want this job and then I'm fine here forever? Or is this, nothing else was available and I'm just coming in to have something to do with my time. Mm-hmm. I will say one thing that for everybody to think of as they were out there looking at is, we do also look at the resume more than the experience itself, other than making sure you have the prerequisite experience. I'm looking at how long have you been in previous jobs? Because if you have 10 jobs listed, but none of them last more than 6 months, do I want to go through the cost and effort of training someone that I'm not going to expect to be around past 6 months? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily anything about the individual. It could have been some bad situations, life events, that sort of thing. But we do know patterns emerge, and so if it's one quick job here, one quick job there, and then some longer sustained work, doesn't even, cross my thought pattern at that time. But if I see a lot of jumping around and that's it, that is something I will look out for. Like, this, not necessarily a red flag, but if there's another candidate that's just as qualified, I might think we have a better chance of retaining them.
So even if they just worked at like McDonald's or somewhere, that's irrelevant to the job, if they work there for like a year or two, you would consider that to be more of I guess, a factor of stability.
That would show a good, stability. But I'm not even talking as much as that as, working at as a technician in an autism center or something like that, where we know that life isn't always going to be good in a lot of those settings. But in our professional field, in the work we are doing, are you becoming restless in your job quickly enough that we won't even get you up to where we want you to be before you're ready to go to the next place? And so I'm not usually looking at those jobs as a student, because I know sometimes those are seasonal, sometimes those are temporary, and they were always planned to be temporary. It's more like professionally later on, master's level student, or I worked as a technician for a few years before going back to school, that sort of thing. In the relevant field work, are you sticking around a little bit longer in those situations? So I don't want anybody to think they go home for a summer and I'm looking at them like, I just can't keep a job. It's just every summer, we know people do that quite a bit.
Thank you so much, Steve. This has been such a meaningful and informational conversation. This is my joy meeting you, and I hope we can stay in touch. And thank you so much again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. And if anybody listens to the podcast, make sure you write in and let us know things you want us to analyze.
And thank you for listening to the Journey Mappers podcast, the official podcast of OU Pledge. We'll see you next time.